This conference will now be recorded.
So again, I just want to thank you for making the time. The region H are those states that are Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Today we're going to cover some specific details with what's happening within that region, a little bit of data, and allow time for conversation as well. So if you haven't heard already, we have been able to help 15,054 people due to the efforts that are being made by our shelter box ambassadors out in the field telling their shelter box story. So we want to thank you for the time, the effort, and the dedication that you give to our mission. We always like to start our conversations with mission, right? So we have a story from Dominica that I'd like to share with you. So who you're seeing right now, this is Carol, and I see Bruce has joined us. Hi, Bruce. Thank you for making some time this morning. Okay, so this is Carol from Dominica, and Carol lived in a house that she had rented with her boyfriend. They were building a new home on their land right before Maria hit, and she had lived in the house for just about a week before Maria came around. And when Maria came, it was a normal day for Carol. She was doing the usual mom stuff, taking care of her children. And then the storm hit. She said that Hurricane Maria was very scary. She'd never seen a hurricane like that. And this was the first time that she'd experienced anything like this. It was so big, she actually thought everyone was dead. The rain was pouring from 5 a.m. And she described the moment that a big breadfruit tree fell in her garden. And she thought that was the hurricane. She says, I was looking at it and I said, that's the hurricane because that's the breadfruit tree that fell. And it was very big. It was huge. But I was praying to God it wouldn't fall in the house. The tree was heavy and it had a lot of branches. And it actually fell peacefully. So she went to bed that night thinking the worst had passed. And she felt safe. But then she woke up in the middle of the night and everything was shaking. The wind grew strong. Her son ran into her room and said, Mommy, there's water coming through your room. Water is pouring through where there's no chance to save anything. They didn't have a chance to save their clothes, any of their items. There was no time. She opened the door as the eye was passing and she looked at her neighbor's house that had been gone. She says, we couldn't move because of all of the trees. I couldn't run with my kids because we would get hurt. We had to stay at the house. She described the morning after as if being in another world and on a strange planet. The destruction changed daily life for many in the community. People could not access the roads, therefore there was no markets or means to get to work. It was a priority to find clean water and food while seeking some shelter. But this meant climbing over trees and debris. It was tiring, she tells us. And you can't have a shower, you get a rash from the water. We were thirsty, and after a while the heat of the sun was unbearable. 2 months after the storm, Carol and her family had to leave the rented house and build a transitional shelter. Carol and her family now use a shelter box tent to store their personal items. Going back 9 months later, she tells us, when I watch things going so quickly, here everyone is getting their roofs done, but something about it since Maria, I feel nicer, something good. I have a good feeling about it. And everyone's getting their house done, and even stronger than before. And it's stories like Carol of why we continue to do what we do in the field to serve more families like hers. And Sarah, I see you've joined us. Thank you for hopping on. So today we want to celebrate you. We want to celebrate this region. And in this region this year, we have been able to recruit one new ambassador so far out of Texas. And it's somebody that came to us actually because of the SAFE program out of Mason, Texas. This region has raised $41,752.04 this year through June, and we just want to thank you for the time and effort to raise those funds. And here we actually have a slide of this region. So I've mentioned it's New Mexico, it's Oklahoma, and Texas. So those states chunked out there. And if you didn't know it already, we actually have Ambassador Map that you can access. I update it monthly, and you can go to the map and click on these little icons. So this little gray icon is telling me that there's an ambassador that doesn't have any equipment here, but they've been recently trained. The green the green box, it's kind of hiding behind this guy. This means they have a large demo box. And this box, or not this box, this star here, this is actually Keith. This means he's our ambassador council member. And then not located anywhere in this region, there's another icon that lets us know that they have a mini box, a mini demo box. All right, Sarah, if you're able to, I think you're unmuted. I'm going to let you take it from here to talk about our resources.
Yeah, perfect. I know that some of you are familiar with these, but we have been doing a lot of work to enhance the suite of resources that we have available for our ambassadors. And so we just wanted to run through with you today what some of those are so that you really know what's out there and know where to access those tools. So we have artwork for things like pop-up banners that can be used for displays. We also have some smaller printable poster type items like you see on the bottom right-hand side there that feature beneficiaries and their stories or quotes. And then we also, our Rotary Relations Committee did a great job of working on playbooks. So if you're going to have a presence and a booth at a Rotary District conference or at a PETS event, so a President-elect training seminar, or work with youth exchange within your district, there are great playbooks that consist of ideas that have been taken and best practices from the whole country and put into this kind of step-by-step guide. And some of it is, here's the basics that you can do. And then if you're really wanting to go in above and beyond, here are some additional ideas. So as an example, at the PETS conference that happens in Seattle, after they've, kind of spent the day with the tent set up and are just a regular, booth type of display, they'll actually have a happy hour in the evening and invite all the attendees to come have a beer at the shelter box tent. And they found that that's a really good way to get an audience, in and to hear about shelter box and to spend more time with people than you could if they were just stopping by for 2 minutes on the way to another session. So all of those great ideas and resources are packaged together in these playbooks that are available on the portal. And if you've not been on it lately, a lot of updates have been done to the ambassador portal. So there's everything from, most updated slide that you can download each week. If you have a presentation to do, it's easy to plug and play so that you can show people where we are in the world today. And all the current information we have is on that first page. And then there are also a lot of resources that we've been adding to over time. So things like a Rotary 101 segment or those templates and how-to guides we mentioned. There's also an ambassador handbook and other tools that our ambassadors can use, like 2018 speaking points. There's the recordings of our past webinars if you happen to miss a session and would like to go back and listen, or if you want to see when those future calls are happening, there's a calendar of that. There's also a lot of great data that's housed on the portal. And so if you're looking to see if, a club in your area has donated or that sort of thing, there's a lot of great in-depth detail under that ambassador program data section. And if there is something that you need that you're not actually finding there, please let us know and we would be happy to provide it to you. But in addition to the dashboards that you're used to, Sharee's also done a great job of adding some new types of reports. So an ambassador fundraising breakdown, giving by state. We have some of those different reports to show you on the call today. And if you ever would like to access them, they're located here. So any questions about any of that so far? Okay, so another place to find the most is on our ambassador Facebook page. So if you're not a part of that group, it's a page that's specifically designed for Shelterbox USA ambassadors, and it's a closed group. And there's really two big benefits to being a part of this group. One is that we can communicate almost, to the moment of what's happening. So if we find out that an earthquake has happened or a team has landed in the ground in another country, sort of those of the moment updates, we're able to communicate here. We're also able to recognize and thank a lot of our ambassadors or let you know about programs that are happening or reminders of when we have calls coming up. But also it's a great way for you to be able to connect with others outside of your region. So ambassadors will post questions here like, does anyone have a presentation or ideas of what can work with a youth group? And then other ambassadors from across the country will jump in and answer and provide resources. And so if there's anything you've wondered about or are struggling with, this page is a good place to post that and to be able to get a lot of different answers and ideas. So just wanted to let you know that that resource is out here. We also have a new tool that we wanted to show you all today. Again, this is something our Rotary Relations Committee worked to develop, but I know that some of you are doing this organically, but for those of you who are planners like me, it's a way to really lay out the Rotary year and to set some goals around what you'd like to achieve for your area in terms of your development of the local region, and then also to have a plan to be able to go out and do that. So there are some different examples here, but starting to think about what could I do to create awareness within my district. So, putting content into the district newsletter or making sure that, I'm at the pets that happens for my district and the district conference. So starting to figure out what some of those high profile opportunities are. And then what will I do to engage clubs? So it might be that I have a personal goal of getting into, one club each month during the year, but some of those might be ones that have never been visited before. And then the other half might be those that I've been to, but I want to make sure I go back and thank or give an update to, because it might have been 2 years since my last presentation. So kind of thinking about what some of that would look like, and then what results we want to achieve from it. So I've been here serving as an ambassador for my district in New Mexico. And so I have a goal of getting 5 new hero clubs this year. And so I've already got 2 against that goal. And then I'm just working to also recruit some new ambassadors here. So I have 1 out of the 2 I'm hoping for. So there's a place to kind of outline all of those different goals. And then on the following page, we have a calendar tool. So on the left-hand side, you can see kind of what the standard Rotary calendar looks like for their year, but we know that this can vary by district. And so while you've got the rough outline there on the left of what tends to happen in a Rotary year, there's a spot for you on the right to actually put down the specifics of what it looks like for your particular district. So the pets in my area happens in February, so I could pencil in February 12th and that sort of thing and really lay out the year. And then I would start by putting those key events, so making sure like the pets and the district conference are on there, because that's an opportunity to talk to 60 clubs at the same time rather than having to go out and kind of be onesie twosie about it. And then I would fill in around that with different club presentations or other outreach activities that would be happening. I know too that some of our ambassadors are part of the RILA program within their district. And so again, that could be another kind of one of those things to build around and a placeholder to put. So we do have programming that RILA students can do as team building activities, and they practice communication and leadership, but via some shelter box exercises. And so if anyone wants more information on that, we have that too. And then on the next page is just a way to break down some of the bigger goals and make an actual plan. So if we said on the first page, I want to make sure I get in front of 10 clubs this year, there's a way to really write out which clubs I want those to be. And we have some data that we can show you for your entire district. So you can see things like when was the last time a club gave and what was the amount of that gift and what was their lifetime giving. So you'll know that there are some clubs in your area that maybe have never given to Shelter Box, and those might be good ones to target initially. And then, like I said, you know, if there's some that we know are great donors and we want to make sure we get in front of, you'll have that data and information too. Another thing that's really useful is getting to know the district leadership. And so making sure we know and have met with the current district governor, but then also Rotary does their planning so far in advance that we also know now who the district governor-elect is, so who will be the DG that following year and even the year after that. And so while the district governor is usually, you know, already running at this point, working to get out in front of different clubs, getting to know those incoming leaders can be very beneficial, because a district governor has the ability to really elevate the necessity for clubs to give to a particular cause, or they can pick a special project that they're going to highlight during their year. So we've had districts where, you know, 3 different district governors in a row have said that they want Shelter Box to be the district's focus. And so all of a sudden we'll go from having kind of clubs give in small clusters to 60 clubs, each giving at least $1,000. And so it's a way to really grow support within a district, and quickly if we can get that district governor support. It's not always that they'll, you know, name us the major project that they're getting behind, but we heard a great example earlier this week from Oregon, where we needed an ambassador within a district, and our lead there was asking if we could put some information into the district newsletter, and the district governor said, you know, you can, but I'll do you one better. I'll assign each of my assistant governors to go out and find people within their clubs who can help you with this. And so they do have a lot of power to kind of make things happen within the district. And so keeping that person close and as a connection and working through them and letting them know what our needs are. So, you know, we could be doing a lot more to keep your district informed about how Rotary and Shelter Box are changing lives around the world. But for us to be able to do that, we need a couple more representatives in this, you know, district. Who would you recommend? That sort of conversation is good to have. And then there's just on the right some other ideas about, you know, familiarizing yourself with the foundation grant process, for example, because Rotary is somewhat convoluted, but it is possible for us to get district grants or to get, you know, dollars from our clubs. We have on our ambassador portal all of the grant wording that would be required to submit a successful grant. So I know sometimes those grant applications are daunting, and just to even apply to get $1,000, you know, there might be 4 pages of information they're asking for in terms of details about the organization and who's on our board of directors and what types of projects would this be funding. And so we have all of that already written, and you can literally just cut and paste. And so again, we just wanted to make sure that you know that those tools are available to you, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Bruce, I know that you do an awesome job of kind of planning, and I've seen the spreadsheets you keep before of the different clubs within your area. Is there anything you wanted to add as kind of thoughts or advice around this?
I don't know if my mic's even working, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. No, I mean, I think, yeah, I tried to start keeping of a sort of the North Texas area, the various Rotary districts we have here, and just every time I make a presentation, put down when it was, so that way when you go back and make the second presentation and the third presentation, all that kind of stuff, you can remind them that you were there a year and a half before or whatever, and keep track of if they donated, if they didn't donate, what kind of reaction you got, just so it's not like starting over every time that you to go back in. So you know, it's worked. I haven't probably been as good as I should be as far as keeping it up to date a little bit, but it's beneficial to refresh your memory on who the players were, and make it seem like a more of a relationship when you go back, rather than just a speaker showing up to talk that day.
Yes, Bruce, and I want to compliment you too. You're really good about doing your homework before a presentation. You reach out to me, get the giving history on the club. Is there a liaison to get the picture of who you're going to be presenting to more personalize your presentation? And I think that can really make a difference in the outcome after you're there.
Yeah, I think one of the things is, if they have donated, they sort of want to know what their stuff went to. And we used to have box assignments. That was easy because you could say where the box went, but then we started having problems where, the box was still sitting in a warehouse a year and a half later. So it was sort of a negative. So, but I think, yeah, if you can go back and just even remind them, because sometimes it's 2 years or more in between presentations to the same club. If you can just remind them that, yeah, 3 years ago you all donated, because a lot of these clubs are growing so fast that I made a presentation a couple of weeks ago that I think half the people in the club had never heard about Shelter Box, but I made a presentation there 2 years ago. So maybe they just forgot the presentation. I don't know. I think you got a lot of growth in Rotary clubs, especially in the fast growing areas. And so if you can remind them that they've done something before, it helps them think about doing it again.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else, any thoughts to add around that or tips that have worked and just kind of planning out the year? Okay, Sharee, we can jump ahead. We just wanted to open these parts up for some different conversations. And so, when you're thinking about giving presentations to clubs, on our ambassador webinar earlier this week, we kind of threw something out there and asked people, what's the one thing you want to make sure you do during every presentation? And so, I just wanted to see, are there tips that you guys would give to one another to share what it is that you feel like kind of has made a difference, or something you're like, oh, I wish I knew that early on, or it's something that you've grown to always include as you go around and talk about Shelter Box to these different clubs. And I can share with you the example from earlier this week. Dave Nichols, who's an ambassador, shared that he always makes sure to research the club ahead of time to see what they've given to in the past. And he shared a specific example where he could see that this club had donated a lot of dollars to Haiti in support of projects there. And so during his presentation, he spent kind of a bigger chunk of the time talking about our response to the Haitian earthquakes and to having gone back there in 2016 after Hurricane Matthew, because that really resonated with him and he knew they had that interest already in place. And so being able to kind of have that little insider information prior to visiting the club, he felt like gave him a leg up, because they did end up making a donation and supporting us because of their affinity to supporting, projects that were in Haiti. Any other thoughts around things you guys always make sure to do, or something that's helped in giving these presentations?
I don't have any good thoughts, but I'd like to ask a question, and Bruce and I have emailed about this. When I give a presentation to my own club, they've heard it, and I've tried and switch it up, but there's, only so many things you can do to be, quote unquote new. And I'm really trying to look for ideas to engage them in the presentation. Except for a few people, most everybody knows what Shelter Box is about, over the years. So I'm trying to find something that will engage them a little more, make them feel good about, giving money. I know they're going to give us money, but I want to make them feel good about it. And I want to do a presentation that is, like I said, in some way engaging them instead of me just up there, talking away. So I wanted to throw that out and see if anybody had the same problem or had any ideas of, coming up with something a little different.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, Keith. I mean, yeah, Sharee and I have talked about, putting together like a 201 presentation, or just other options that talk about different aspects of our work so that it builds beyond just kind of that basic 101 presentation. So there would be other modules you could take and do. And I had to, go back to a club the other week that I had already been to. And so I actually made the presentation about how, even though we first started as a natural disaster organization, and that's what a lot of Rotary clubs know us as, how we've been able to take the lessons that we learned in natural disasters and then apply them in these conflict zones across the world. And so I went through like what some of those lessons are and how it worked for us in natural disasters, but now it's how it's being used in a conflict zone, and then talked about our recent nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. So that's a presentation I'm happy to share. So we can help you with some of that stuff, of putting some stuff together. I was also thinking too, we have such great images from the work that's been done, first images of the absolute destruction that we saw last year during the hurricane season. But as we've gone back, we had a team a few weeks ago in Dominica who was, doing now the second phase of evaluations that we've done there. There was a group that went back kind of 6 months after the storm to do a review. And now we had another group go back 9 months later just to see and ensure that progress was continuing for these families. And so we have some great stories. So I think also we could put together just a 20-minute thing around looking at a particular storm and, from the very initial devastation to what we were able to get in and do, to then what the long-term impact has been for these families, and do kind of a deep dive on a particular deployment. If either of those sounds good to you, I feel like we have materials for all that stuff.
I think they both sound great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would second that. So one of the first presentations I did on my roadshow was to a club who had been supporting us every year for 10 years, 8 years. It'd been a long time. And so I knew that I had to gear my presentation more towards thanking them for their support and how their dollars have been put to work. So I put our most recent operations map behind me and said, because of their funding, we have been able to support these countries. And then I would like zoom in on a country and say, like, here's a conflict-based example, and here's how we're working in this conflict example. And then I used the new Luminate with the 24-hour setting and brought in how that helps in Syria, where we have this video with the kids who are having class underground, who they might need light 24 hours a day because it's not safe to go above ground, and tried to bring in, how our aid has evolved and why, and specific deployments. And then I'll go into like a natural disaster example of how their dollars have been put to work.
That sounds awesome.
Bruce, I know you've done some of those repeat presentations. Any other thoughts around that, or how you kind of change it up?
Yeah, I've probably got 3 or 4 iterations of presentations. I got the basic, first time you ever go to a club, here's the basics. I've got a presentation that sort of for the second presentation or anything in the last couple of years where, we've got more than one type of tent now. We've got the shelter kits. So I try to talk about what has changed since the last time I was there and show that we're getting better at what we do, and we can don't have to necessarily send the box, and it's better use of our donors' money and all those type of things. I've got one presentation that just deals primarily with conflicts, since that's so much of our stuff lately. But I'll have to say, I don't sense that triggers the same emotions as natural disasters. I've given it 2 or 3 times, once to my own club, and while everybody listens, you don't get the same people tearing up and all that kind of stuff as you do when it's a natural disaster. So I don't know if I'm going to use that in a whole lot more. And then obviously every time I do one, it's it talks about the basics, but then I always try to have some stories from the field, or what's the latest places we've been going. And I've got a slide that shows where we are on that very day in the world. And so you bring that up and say, as of this morning, we're putting aid in these 8 different countries. And you talk about that, they probably haven't heard of most of them. And it just shows that we're always doing something, even if it isn't in the news media.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, that's great. I'm hearing you. I love that you already know that there's these buckets of audiences. And I'm wondering, would you be willing to share like an outline or bullet points from these different presentations so that we can share that out with the other ambassadors?
Sure, I'll just send you the PowerPoints if you want.
Oh, that's great. Are you okay with us putting those on the portal and letting the group know that they're there?
Yeah, I think
Sharing?
look at them first and see if you think they're worth putting there. But if you do, I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Awesome. So as we get more of those ideas from across the country around presentation tips, we'll keep adding them to the Facebook page and to the portal as well. In terms of making the ask and follow up, I know we have people who have different approaches to this. Some always do it as a part of the presentation, in that in the end they'll say, you know, we really hope that this project can become part of your regular giving. We have others who prefer not to do it during the actual presentation, but who kind of grab the president aside afterwards and say, you know, how can we make this part of your regular giving? So, you know, it's kind of up to you and kind of knowing that club and what's appropriate to decide how you do that, but definitely having some form of follow-up where you're able to send them some more information about the HERO program or how they can become involved. You know, these clubs are busy, and a lot of times they're having to take it back to their board or fill out a special grant form, and it could be kind of months before, you know, you hear anything. And so being able to get them the information quickly around what they would need to support us just helps us secure the donation. Any other thoughts around things that have kind of worked with either making the ask or making sure that we're following up with those clubs to receive the donation?
Yes, Sarah, I know that somebody recently said they make sure to do a handwritten card or card with a stamp in the mail, old snail mail style. And another one, and somebody else gave the tip recently that keeping track or like a contact list of those that you've worked with to set up presentations, and then when disasters happen or when Shelterbox is providing news updates, making sure to loop those people back in later and continuing that conversation and stewarding those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The other thing, and I think Bruce, this is kind of, you know, along the lines of your spreadsheet to track the presentations to all the clubs, just keeping a spreadsheet. I keep a spreadsheet of all of the contacts I worked with in each of those clubs. So ultimately, we'd love to have a Rotary liaison within every club. And so that's a person, it's a lower kind of time commitment for a volunteer role, but basically it's somebody within a club who agrees to receive monthly Shelterbox updates that they can then take back and share with the club. So whether it's during Happy Bucks or just as an announcement once a month, being able to, you know, talk about where we are in the world, or you know, a new piece of equipment we have, or that type of thing. We're looking for people who can stay that point of contact for us. And Bruce, I know, has done a great job of cultivating these folks and asking for one every time he goes for a presentation. But if we can have that person within the club who's kind of embedded and can keep Shelterbox front of mind for the club from month to month, rather than just maybe the one time of year or one time every other year that we're there, we found that it can really increase engagement. And also a lot of our great ambassadors have come from having been liaisons and then seeing all this good information have wanted to get more involved. So it's also a pipeline to develop people and build them as volunteers. But if we don't have that, being able to have the email of a president or maybe the person who set up the speaking engagement and just keeping them on an email list, so that if a big disaster hits or if something newsworthy happens, like our Peace Prize nomination, that it's quick and easy to send an update to those folks to keep them in the loop. That's something that I've seen be really helpful. When the volcanoes hit in Guatemala, I was able to send a quick note out to both, you know, my district governor and some of the district contacts, but also the clubs I had been to let them know this was happening. And I know we got some additional donations because of that. Okay, great. So if there's not any other thoughts around that particular piece, we just wanted to take a couple minutes and touch on the HERO program. So as a reminder, this is sort of our sustainable giving program, and it helps us to build our inventory so that we're not waiting until a large event strikes to go out and to procure items, that we can have aid pre-positioned, and so that we're ready to respond rapidly in the event of these disasters. And so as you all know, there are different levels. So we have the bronze level of $1,000, silver is $2,000, or excuse me, $3,000, and gold is $5,000. And so what we're asking is that clubs agree to give this annual amount in a 3-year stint. And this helps us to be able to have a budget that we know we can count on from year to year, rather than having the big spikes that we see following a disaster, and then maybe times when we're not receiving as many donations in between. So rather than having those huge peaks and valleys, that we can have a pot of money that we can draw on, so that we can build our reserves, and so that we can be poised to respond. And so again, I would just love to hear if there's any ideas around how this program is working, or how to sell it, or if there's challenges with it. I know something that's been nice for me is that as a new ambassador trying to work an entire district, I've been getting out to different, more rural clubs. But if I can get them started on the Hero program, it buys me kind of 3 years before I need to necessarily be back there in person. And so it's helped me, because for me, a year goes by quickly, and time can pass fast between, when you're out there. And so for me, getting them set up onto this program, I know that there's support coming in, even if I've not had a chance to actually go back and be in front of them again. And then because I've kept them on that list, I'm still communicating with them and sending them little updates here and there. But it's a way to, I feel like it just kind of lightens my load.
Sarah, I know we talked about this in the council meeting, that in some clubs, and mine is one of them, it's hard to get a 3-year commitment, leadership changes and that thing. So even having the Hero Club as a goal, so to speak, and doing it in retroactively, right? So they get 3 years of donating, and then they get their Hero Club, recognition. But a lot of them can't commit to a 3-year $1,000 or $2,000, that kind of thing. But even still, promoting it as something to shoot for, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's a great point, Keith. So we have had so when we designed the program initially, it was with the thought that, if we could have people make a commitment and give a check in year 1, but then sign a pledge to do it for 2 more years, it would be that guaranteed funding stream that we could count on. But yeah, exactly right. We did get that feedback from clubs that some presidents didn't want to make that promise on behalf of future presidents in the club. And so they were reluctant to sign, a future pledge on somebody else's behalf. But they told us, we probably will support you all 3 of those years. I just don't feel comfortable making that promise. And so we altered the program so that we could include exactly what you're talking about. So there's basically 2 ways to kind of become a Hero Club. One is that, you sign a 3-year pledge and give the initial gift. The other is that you've given 3 years in a row, and then we can go back and recognize and thank them. The one advantage to them kind of signing the pledge early is that then they're on our website all 3 of those years, and they have that recognition and kind of the title, versus, doing it at the end of the time. But I think you're totally right. And it might be a good tool then to use if a club is given 2 years in a row and we're wanting that 3rd year gift. It could be like a kind of a carrot we dangle, and say, if you do this just 1 more year, then you qualify for this recognition program, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that works really well. And that's what I'm dangling in front of my club this year. So
awesome.
So Sarah, this is Bruce. I may have missed something along the way. So run that by again. So because I have had some pushback from clubs when I present the Heroes program that, well, gosh, you're asking for a 3-year commitment. We've given for the last 5 years. What are you going to give us for that? So
then they are heroes. So we go through our database, Bruce, like twice a year, and we add all those people to the website. So they would still qualify. Yeah, if they've been giving that whole time, yeah, and you're right, the program didn't initially start as that, but we tweaked it so that we're not disincentivizing those people, and we're making sure that we're recognizing those who consistently give to us.
Okay, so we can basically indicate that if they've given for 3 years, they just need to put the paperwork in and they're a hero?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, Bruce, they don't even need to put the paperwork. Like if we have a check from them for 3 years, we're adding them to the site and we're sending them their banner.
Oh, okay. Okay.
At what point did that start? So I mean, there's
yeah.
a start date, right? So if
yeah,
go ahead.
It's at the end of the Rotary year when we're going through and doing that audit and making sure that we add to the site anyone who would have given for 3 years. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I understand that, but at what point in time did the hero program?
Did we change it?
Yeah.
About a year ago when we were getting that feedback that, clubs couldn't do
well, no,
that.
not when you changed it, but see, if that's the case, I mean, my club has been giving $1,000 a year for a while now, but I think the hero program started 2 years ago, or
right.
I can't remember. But that's the only thing I'm saying is if they're doing it if you're looking back, and the hero program started 2 years ago, then they still need to give that, even though they've given $1,000.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right, because the hero form existed in an iteration before that, and yeah, you're right. 2 years ago, they kind of just wiped the slate clean and said, okay, here's what the new program is. So yeah, that was 2 years ago, Keith.
All right.
Sorry, not to make this whole thing overly convoluted, but
yeah.
we're just trying to make it work for everybody and to get that ongoing support.
Right.
and so and we've tried to be as flexible as humanly possible. So we've had some clubs say, we're a small club and we can only give 500, but we really want to be a hero. So if the members pitch in, could that count? And we say yes to that. It's just that we're asking them to please just include it all and send it in at one time, because I think what had happened in the past is we'd have a lot of clubs doing that, and then people had balances where we were still waiting for $80 from this club and $200 from that club, and it became kind of a administrative nightmare. And so but wherever possible, we've tried to flex and make it work for the club. We don't want it to be that they're having to abide by some crazy guidelines we've made. We're really trying to recognize and thank as many people as we can.
Right.
And another thing too, Sharee's done a great job since she's been on board. We basically receive weekly a list of anyone who's given us over $1,000. And so there are Rotary clubs on there who aren't heroes, but who have made a gift. And so she sends them a really nice kind of thank you letter and case study, kind of a proof of performance package that they get in the mail, in addition to, the regular thank you for your donation receipts and that type of stuff. So even if somebody's not a hero, we're still making sure to do that kind of recognition and acknowledgement. So looking at volunteer recruitment, we just wanted to, again, kind of open the floor and see if there's things that have worked for you all. I know that, having those liaisons and being able to have conversations. So if you guys wanted a list of all the liaisons in your area, so you could send a note and say, hey, we're looking for a couple more ambassadors. Is this something you might want to do? There's that opportunity. We also have a volunteer in Colorado who said he puts the volunteer ask kind of tucked into the middle of the presentation. So when he's talking about, this awesome core of SRTs that we have in the world and our ambassadors, he asks for volunteers kind of partway through to join our movement and to get involved, because he said when it was at the end, he felt like people might have tuned out by that time, or people were getting ready to leave, but by kind of planting it in the middle, he felt like he got some better reception for the idea. So that was an idea that we wanted to share. Any other thoughts around getting some more volunteers into our regions? One of the things Sharee and I have done is gone through and looked at which districts in our country don't have an ambassador. And so, we're wanting to do outreach to all of the district governors in those areas to see if they would be willing to appoint somebody. Thanks, Sharee. So yeah, let's look at this. So here's that information. So here are all the Rotary districts within your kind of shelter box region, and you can see how many clubs are in each of those districts, and then how many ambassadors are in those. So 5870, we have a larger number of ambassadors. And so the other thing we've done is we've gone through, and you can see on the next slide, we've actually designated, so for areas where there are multiple ambassadors within a district, just named kind of a lead person so that they could help coordinate the efforts of everyone within their district so that they're not stepping on each other's toes. And so what we'd like to ask is that these folks can help coordinate the outreach within their district so that as we're bringing on more ambassadors, if Bruce has 5 ambassadors in his area, that he could be the lead to kind of say, okay, if you'll take the north half, I'll take the eastern side, and we can stay on top of both club visits that way, but also that there's kind of one point of contact to the district governor, so we don't have 12 people always calling the DG if a disaster strikes, or 12 different people trying to sign up for a booth at the House of Friendship and that sort of thing, just so there's coordination. I know in your area you guys do a lot of this organically and all this is already in place, but we had some parts of the country where that wasn't necessarily the case, and so we've tried to help put some kind of structure and design to that. So then looking at the data on the next slide, you can see we have a breakdown by state of how many dollars we've received from each state. And we tease Sharee's name is Sharee Sheets, but we joke that it's Sharee Spreadsheets because she does a great job of being able to dissect the data and look at it all different ways. So we can get you information by state on either, what's come in this quarter or year to date, or against the Rotary year, but we also have that data by district. So if you're interested in seeing that at any point in time, again, it's on the portal in that section that I showed you, or we are happy to send it to you as well if you have a specific district you want to pull out and look at. But again, we can see kind of how we're doing from one quarter to the next for this time, year to date versus last year, or we can look at a Rotary year comparison as well. So that's the data by district. We also have the same information, but by club. So I know this is a hard slide to read, but we have every single Rotary club, how much they've given to us, the amount of their last gift date, the date of their last gift, so we can see if a club hasn't donated maybe since 2013, that might be someone we want to reach back out to. And then we also have lifetime giving for those clubs. And if you've not seen this for your area, please let us know and we'll get you that information, because I think it's just really helpful to know. Some of these clubs have given $50,000, $100,000. So being able to get in and do a special thank you to them is huge. And then we have others that are really untouched. So if we can assign an ambassador within our district to go and do that outreach, it's something that's, really helpful.
And Sarah, this is Sharee. I was going to let you all know that I actually have pulled a recent report as of yesterday for this region, and it will go out with the call recording and the notes from today's call.
Of course you have. Awesome. Thank you, Sharee. Perfect. The other kind of, reminder note, and I know you guys are always on top of this, but now is really a good time to be getting on the calendar for pets and for district conference that are this Rotary year. And as a reminder, I think, of course, it's great to have a booth in the House of Friendship or a place where we can set up the tent and talk to people. But really, over the years, as we're building and deepening our relationships with these Rotary districts, ultimately what we'd like to have is a speaker during the general session, or perhaps a breakout session that's specific to Shelter Box. And so we have some great content. There's a high stakes leadership session that was done at the Rotaract pre-convention in Toronto, for example. We have people like Carrie, our president, or others on our team who are willing to travel and to present. So if there could be an opportunity during a general session to talk about Shelter Box, she or others are willing to go and travel and do that, especially if it's a multi-district event where we're going to have a big gathering of people. So please know that those opportunities are available, and where we could use your help is kind of planting the seed on these things so that the districts know this is available. I don't know how yours operate, but my pets is pretty tired, and like we just had a lot of people kind of talking at us all day, whereas the breakout that we do that's called high stakes leadership is very interactive and hands-on, and they're learning about teamwork and leadership and communication in a way that's really interactive. And so I think that's a good sell to be able to come to this district leadership with as a different type of offering that Shelter Box can provide. And so just wanted to mention that that's available too. I know Bruce has to jump off. Bruce, thank you so much for your time and also for everything you've been doing down there. We appreciate it. So at this point, we really just wanted to see, are there things that we can be getting to you guys? I think we uncovered some needs immediately, Keith, with the things you mentioned in terms of kind of some other types of presentations we can do as we're doing repeat visits to club, and Sharee and I will jump on that right away. We'll steal Bruce's good ideas and add in some of our own and make sure you get those resources. But are there other things you guys feel like would help you in your role or make your lives easier that we could be providing to you? And if you can't think of stuff now, that's okay. We can, we're always here. So if you guys think of stuff after the fact, we would be happy to send it to you or, build something. The other question we have is, are you happy with the webinars, or are there different topics that you'd like to see? Or maybe it's always impossible to kind of sit on an hour-long call. So if you'd rather have, little bite-sized 5-minute lessons that we put onto our Facebook page, we'd be happy to do that too. We just wanted to kind of open it up and see if there's things that that are additional that we could be providing.
I really like that idea of whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but some shorter things that we can listen to. An hour is a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
In the middle of the day, and
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody that's been on this call. But yeah, I think that would be really great if you could do something between 5 and 20 minutes, little segments, and they can all be different lengths, but just as long as it needs to be to get the point across. I think that those would be really good.
Okay, cool. And then Keith, what's the best way? Like, is it a section on the portal that you would go and speak out, or should we send out an email when there's a new one of those, or put it on the Facebook page? Like, what would be the best way to kind of get that into people's hands?
All three. I mean,
Okay.
I'm seriously, you got to hit people in different ways. I mean, I'm not a Facebook person, and other people, so it's everybody has a different way of, wanting to get the information. So I respond to emails and, or even
Perfect. Okay.
even a text,
I was gonna say, I know. If I call you or text you, you always answer. Yeah. Okay, good. Perfect. Yep, we can totally do that. And that's something we've been talking about. Yeah, this kind of idea of like Relay University, where there are smaller bite-sized chunks you could take. So we have some that we're putting together right now. So yes, stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk offline about this high stakes leadership and learn a little more about it. I want to take up time now, but that sounds very interesting.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Yep.
We can do that for sure. Michael, I know you're still with us. Anything you wanted to add or stuff you need?
No, I'm good. I'm just kind of being a fly on the wall here, just kind of listening to everybody speak. It's all good information. And I'm with Keith. I think you do have to, we do those little vignettes, if you will. I'm not on Facebook either, so I wouldn't get those. So
Okay.
getting those out a number of different ways would be helpful for me at least.
Yeah. Michael, do you get the ambassador newsletters that we send out once a month?
I do.
Yeah. Are those helpful, or is it too much information? We're just trying to gauge what people want,
No, I think, when I have downtime during the day, I always can pull them up and read them, and I don't think it's too much information. I like them.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, but we can definitely build in some little YouTube segments that we can include in those, or pepper out at different times during the month. Yeah. Great. Okay, awesome. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, I don't want to take more time than we need to, but again, thank you so much for your ongoing efforts. Truly, our ambassadors are the way that so many people in the United States know about our organization, and it's that, old-fashioned word of mouth, being in front of people, sharing our story that goes so far to drive interest and donations. And so, we absolutely couldn't do this work without you. So thank you. And if there is more that we can do to lighten your load or make things easier, we're happy to. So yeah, I guess I'll just end with thank you and let us know how we can help.
Yes, thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.